Yes, I am.
Okay.
I am. All right. And let's do this in 3, 2, 1. This is the 8-9 combo. I am Brett McKay, and I'm very much looking forward to kicking off the first episode of our brand new podcast with the obvious co-host, Harry Jones. Hello, mate. We're going to do this.
How's it, Brett? I also want to shout out to Chook, whose immortal voice is now welcoming us.
Yes.
Chook is a man that we know from the harbor in Sydney. He picks up oysters. He manages bands. But no, we're following a long line of 8-9ers, like Pickamoles and Para, Heaslip and Murray, Vermeulen and Dupree, Kifu and Gregan, Zinzan and the father of the Bashups, the good and the bad Bashups. So, no, I'm very excited. I don't know of anything I'd rather do right now than pod with you.
No, it feels like this is the right thing to do at this point in time in February, and there's no turning back, mate. The official launch of the 8-9 Combo Rugby podcast with episode 1, and we're about to get arguably the biggest international rugby guest onto our first show under the new independent banner. It doesn't get much more exciting than that.
I am very excited. I'm 20% giddy. I'm 30% hungry as always. I'm 10% amorous. Actually, I'm actually more hungry than normal because I was watching Italy versus Ireland, and the players on Italy sound like a menu. Lucchesi, Manoncello with a side of fischetti and a hint of Zalocci with your favorite cannoni. And I'm like, you just need one guy playing whose name Maledetto, and then you'll win.
We will come back to the Six Nations. We will come back to the Six Nations. We said during our teaser episodes last week that we weren't really going to change much about our format. And while we're still going to do Heroes and Zeros, we've decided to give that a bit of a new name, haven't we? So here we go with cheers and jeers, mate. So hit me up with a cheers from the last week.
3 cheers. My first one is Amy Barrett-Saron, the referee who she made the 2 under 20 captains sheepish by basically saying, "I'm not really mad. I'm just disappointed, Did you lie to me when you said you could control your guy?" I love that young man management, because they literally went back, just bashful almost, and saying,
"Yes,
no, you can trust us." Second one is Harry Patterson, Scottish fullback. I think it is 9th professional match of his life, is playing the lonely fullback position against the long bong French, and didn't put a foot wrong, created a beautiful try. On the Scottish theme, I will stay. My final cheer is Scottish Enlightenment philosopher David Hume, who 270 years ago in Edinburgh said that there's no innate ideas. To be empirical, you have to be skeptical. And what can you really believe, Brett? So we saw that at the end of the match. There was a ball on the ground. A guy said, "There's a ball on the ground."
Probably.
We all saw it. I could see it. And then it was not just metaphysically, the ball was on the ground, but this did not end the search for meaning. And so now we have a loss for Scotland because, there was a little tiny bit of existential doubt.
I think the only way we're going to solve that is to get someone to run out a GoPro on a selfie stick so the referee can bury it in and actually see it. We need to get cameras in the rucks.
Tennis has a magical eye that seems to see where the ball is. I think we could probably do something there.
We might be able to put that to our guest in a moment. I have a cheers for you, mate, from the Southern Hemisphere, and it's pre-season injuries, and unfortunately, it's pre-season injuries that happen in the Northern Hemisphere. Funnily enough, the Blues lost their recently renamed skipper Patrick Tuipulotu to a broken jaw in their first half of their win over Suntory Sungoliath in Tokyo last weekend, and only 15 minutes or so after legendary Welsh fullback Lee Halfpenny was sighted ripping into a haka for the Crusaders in Cork against Munster, he left the field with a shoulder injury that's now going to rule him out for 3 or 4 months. And you hate seeing preseason injuries at the best of time, but when they're really key players for teams, that makes it all the worse. So, boo, cheers for that. I say. But mate, we have been talking about our first ever guest on the new pod for weeks now, so let's just get straight into this.
There's some music there, Bill.
Music here, there now. Coming to you now, Sir Bill. We had so many questions and so many topics we wanted to ask and discuss in our first episode of the 8-9 combo, but we really wanted to be able to ask them at the highest level we possibly could. and they really don't get any higher than our very first guest for 2024. You might need to be standing for this one, Harry Jones, as we welcome to the 8-9 Combo Rugby Podcast a man who captained England in 21 of his 34 tests. He was the captain of the 1980 British and Irish Lions tour to South Africa, the former chairman of the Rugby Football Union in England from 2012 to 2016, and since 2016, he is the chair of World Rugby. Please welcome Sir Bill Beaumont.
Hi guys, delighted to join you. So I didn't realise you were split between Australia and the US. So
well, I presume as Harry's in the US, Sir Bill, it changes weekly. So I have to take his word on it.
Yeah, I always imagined, Bill, that you were in the World Rugby headquarters. There was a giant map, like those World War II movies, where you have the topographical map and you have the regions, and you're sitting there
moving it around with sliders.
You have little, tanks and ships, and you stuff. How can we dominate the world with rugby? Is that true?
Not really. No, I think sort of. I'm actually sat in my very very pleasant office on the Lancashire coast, a place called Lytham St Downs, which is quite a nice day today. Actually, the sun's shining. So no, we don't. I don't sit there with a big map, and I can show you moving bits around here, there, and everywhere, and then colouring them in. Sort of. Have we conquered? There are plenty of areas where we need to go and want to go.
Indeed. No, we'll keep up the. We've lost Harry briefly. Every now and again, this happens, Sir Bill, and here he is. He's coming straight back in. He is coming straight back in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are you okay there, mate?
I'm okay. I'm just, the ice and snow is getting me. I'm on the border.
Did you just jump borders there or something? We do need to touch on the knighthood, Sir Bill. You were first knighted in 2019, but a further gong in the New Year's honours this year appointed Knight Grand Cross of the Order of the British Empire for services to rugby and charity. Tell us what did that mean to you and the family at New Year? It must have been it's a huge honour anyway, but it's been stepped up again.
Oh, it's unbelievable. I think I never set out in rugby to all I want to do is play for the local county. I never thought I'd be good enough, and then sort of I did that, then ended up playing for England. And you think, well, that's the highlight you can get, and then being lucky enough to go on a Lions tour, and then captain in England, and then captain the Lions. So from a rugby point of view, then I'd achieved everything that I ever dreamt of as a schoolboy, of what anybody wants to do. Any kid, girl or boy, when they set out, that's what you want to do. You want to put on the jersey of your country. And then I then had a bit of a 10 years out of my rugby career. Because when I finished, I was an amateur, and I wrote a book. Well, I got somebody to help me to write it, actually. And that then deemed me as a professional. So I wasn't allowed to get back into the game. But people don't realise that for probably about 8 or 9 years. And then I was then asked to go on to the RFU, the English Rugby Union Council, and then they put me on World Rugby, and one thing led to another. But it's a huge privilege, and to get a knighthood is something that, 2019 I never thought I was going to ever get, and then to get this sort of upgrade is very, very humbling when you look at how few people have actually received it.
Do you? Does it get you a closer car park at Buckingham Palace? What does the upgrade entitle you to?
It enables me to do various things like St Paul's Cathedral and things like that. You can have weddings there, and sort of. I've also been nominated to freedom of my local town here, and also the City of London, so I can actually be able to take cattle across the London Bridge and things like that. But hugely, I've had some unbelievable sort of accolade, which I just look upon myself as Bill Beaumont, rugby enthusiast, rugby fanatic, who goes to watch the local team play every time at home, the team that I played for, who my father played for, my sons played for, and my grandchildren play there. So to me, that is what rugby is all about when I go down there at the weekend.
Tell me, how did you get into the administration side of things? And I guess the question behind that is, in the amateur days, what was in it for you to make that move?
Well, I had a day job. Everybody had a day job.
Yeah.
I think that is actually one of the unique things about the game of rugby, which still occurs in probably 99% of all sheds or dressing rooms. You call them sheds, we call them dressing rooms around the globe. That it is actually a group of girls, women, men, boys. You sit there, and you're all from different walks of life normally.
Yes.
And the thing that I used to love about the game was the different skill set that you had in the dressing room, within the dressing room. And it didn't matter if you were a lawyer or if you were a truck driver, a lot of school teachers, or whatever you did, then you were accepted for what you actually contributed to that team.
Mm.
And to me, that's the great thing about the game. It was that massive camaraderie. And a great pal of mine summed it up. He said it didn't matter if you had a thin wallet or you had a thick wallet, then you were all the same in that dressing room. And to me, that's the great thing about the game. And that still exists globally in, I would think, 98% of all change rooms, all team games in rugby.
Yeah, no, it's certainly true. It's certainly true. The game has had its pinnacle. Another Rugby World Cup in France last year. In the grand scheme of Rugby World Cups, where did France 2023 rank in your eyes?
Oh, right up there. I think certainly the passion of the game in France. I know you're probably over there for it, witnessed it. It's sort of, I think the French know how to put on a show. They certainly knew how to put on a show. I think the local buy-in, sort of, you go to fantastic rugby cities like Toulouse, for instance, who are used to staging massive games of rugby, but the enthusiasm that you had. I went to Lille, which is not a hotbed of rugby, really, Lille. 2 games, France against Uruguay, then went back for the final pool game, and it was Romania against Tonga.
Yes.
Romania-Tonga.
Yeah.
And Sunday afternoon, game meant nothing, really, apart from the pride of playing in a World Cup. Over 40,000 people there. Absolutely rammed the stadium. Yeah. So, I think it was a great one. Japan took us to a different level. The first World Cup, Rugby World Cup in Asia. What a success that was. What a great success. And one of the issues was that we had such a barren time between Japan and really 18 months out before this World Cup because of the COVID pandemic.
Yes.
So nobody's allowed to play, nobody could go anywhere. And so it probably made it slightly harder, a bit more challenging to grow the game, which we are endeavouring to do. In Asia, for instance, we have to really grow the game there because it's sort of just a huge sporting area.
Yeah. There must have been times during the pandemic, 2020, 21, 22, particularly, where you wondered whether we'd get to France in 2023.
Yeah, and World Rugby got criticised because of the draw for the pool draw in France. And look, the only thing we could go on was the result from the World Cup. And obviously, then in the interim, you had sides like Ireland, for instance, who almost, I think they were number 1 seeded sort of nation. So all we could do for the World Cup draw was go from the seeds that we'd had, the final placings from Japan. And I think when we go to Australia, then the draw will be made later. And so that can probably reflect more of the true actual playing form of countries nearer to the tournament. But as you say, there's sometimes I sat in this office and I thought, crikey, what are we going to do? Sort of everywhere's closed down. There's sort of like tumbleweed going through the middle of London, sort of what is happening to our sport. And to be perfectly honest, if we hadn't have had the World Cup in Japan, if that had been cancelled, then that would have put a lot of unions and federations in real jeopardy. So as it was, we were able to have banked our money in a way and help countries out. So that's what we're here for.
Pending no further global pandemics, Harry.
Yeah, Bill. Actually, I've met you before. I met you in 1980. It was a strange meeting. I was captain of the under-16 provincial team, so we got the prime seat, front row, Newlands, and I was watching you. You guys lose to Rob Lowe in the box, 26-22 in the first test. And sometimes in rugby, even then, there were the moments where the audience would the crowd would kind of fall silent. And I just picked that moment to say something really horrible to you. And I just want to say I'm really sorry for calling you a big bottom bastard as you were lining up for the line-out. I feel like it genuinely hurt you. You looked at me like, come on.
Been called a lot worse at many rugby grounds and stadia, and actually probably a lot of them in England as well. So I never took it to heart. Sorry. So I'll forgive you.
Well, that was back when lineouts were elbow thrashing, earthbound mosh pit of casual violence. So I do think it took you a little bit back because of the pitch or something. I just said it so clearly, and I wanted to apologize. But I mean, speaking of lineouts have come a long way since your day. Would you like to be lifted that high in the air, or would you prefer to be on terra firma?
Well, most of my line out will be more in a sideways direction than actually an upward direction. I remember on that tour we played Western Province, and I think there was a set row I was marking called Eddie Becker, who was absolutely enormous guy. And I still work in Met, so I was on a good day 6'3.5", whatever that is. And he must have been almost 7 foot tall, this guy.
No, he was a legitimate 6'10". Yes.
Yeah. And Peter Wheeler, our hooker, was about to throw the ball to the line out. He came up to me and said, "It looks as though you stood in a hole." But I did manage to win on my own ball.
That's the important things.
Look, I think lineouts are a real work of art now. And I remember listening to Martin Johnson when he first started. There were about 7 different calls. So when I went, and now there must be about 40 different calls, I should imagine, that they have. And they changed where they. I know my son is a pro player, and he told me that they'll see where the opposite numbers are and then change the numbers. So somebody gets a free jump or what have you. But I think sort of it is fantastic athleticism. In it, like kickoffs, thing like hold up there for catching the ball, and not in my day. I could kept my feet firmly on the ground, especially when it came to line-out time.
Yeah, and you cleared it out with your what I called was your magnificent bottom. So again, I want to apologize for that terrible insult. But
you seem a bit obsessed with it, but I think we need to move on.
I'm glad we can clear the air 46 years later.
Yeah. So if the lineout is our favorite child of the set piece, it's ornate, it's sophisticated, it's got all these calls, and I think it's one of the signature looks of a rugby match. We seem to always be arguing about the scrum, what to do with it, how much time it stops, how do we handle that? What are your views on the role of the scrum? Can it be gentrified like a lineout, or should it just always be
Harry, actually, that we've got a big meeting coming up in 2 weeks' time about the shape of the game. And I've been down talking to lots of people. I think we've got to speed the game up, in my opinion. We've got to... And the time that it takes too much time out of the game. And I think that certainly we will be looking, and I don't know because I don't have the exact answer at the moment. And that's what I'm hoping to get in 2 weeks' time when we assemble all the great brains of all the rugby playing nations who are going to sit around. Basically, everybody will say, what do you think are the major issues in the game? And to me, it is got to get more ball in play. There are many ways in which you can play rugby, by the way. And I think we should never lose sight of that fact, that if you want to play a forward orientated game, that's fine. but also if you want to play 15-man rugby wide to keep the game as wide as possible, then also it should be many ways to do it. I think there's a lot, to me, there's a lot, probably too much kicking. I think scrums need to be speeded up. And I just think at big occasions, we're missing a trick that we don't actually let the spectator in the stadium know what's happening.
Yes.
To me, that is a major thing. If you're trying to, like, obviously, Super Bowl last night, every single decision is relayed to the crowd.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying that's right, but sort of why, so the referee goes to the TMO, and what we should be doing in the stadium is saying the reason why.
Yeah.
Which when you're on when you're watching at home or online.
Yes.
Then obviously you know what's happening. But if you're actually in the stadium, then we need to try and get as much information, I think, for the paying spectator as possible.
Yeah, it's dead time, and when you're in the stadium. I was in Adelaide for Wallabies Box, and there was the thing about Nick White, and it literally was about 5 minutes of us just sitting in the sun, and everyone was asking the neighbor, "What do you think's happening?" "I don't know. What do you think?" So that can possibly be a good way to do it. Is there a conundrum?
It shouldn't ever be a disadvantage to be at a game live.
Right.
No, I just think the ways in which we can do it, which look, we're not perfect, and we're always listening. Though I'll listen to you two guys, and you will have really good ideas, maybe. And then maybe not.
And bad ideas.
He has definitely listened to us.
Yeah, and so look, and I think it's important to know what the paying spectator wants out of a game. I think you will always have I will call him the anorak, who will always go and pay his money, and he's just quite happy whatever the game, he wants his team to win, and that's fair enough. But I do think we have to try and entertain the crowd so that there's no downtime in the stadium, so that you always know what is happening. And I know it depends on, you might be some new stadium, you might be some old stadium, the screens might not be as good in some that they are in others. So I just think there's lots of things at the top level we could do, because at the end of the day, we've got to remember that 98% of all our rugby players are just playing for a bit of fun, a bit of enjoyment. But the thing that really gets them to play is seeing exciting men and women playing the game of rugby.
Bill, is there a conundrum, though? Because as we just try to decide whether we're more of a collision game or an illusion game, and we have the backdrop of the concussion litigation in our minds, if we have so much fewer lineouts, depowered scrum, more ball in play, way more, 4 times as many rucks, and therefore about 3 times as many tackles in a match, and all the players are bigger, fitter, stronger, etc. Are we running into a difficulty of managing that crisis in our game when we're also trying to do the growth entertainment aspect?
Yes, it's sort of, you got to choose the balance, haven't you, Harry?
Yeah.
You've got to choose the balance between the game is a physical contact game, and so the game is about there is a uniqueness about the game of rugby, and the scrum is unique, the lineouts are unique, and I think there are ways in which our interpretation maybe around look at the breakdown, sort of, can we speed the breakdown up? Can we maybe give a bit more advantage to the attacking team as opposed to giving advantage to the defensive team? So there's lots of things you can do, but the important thing is to trial them, because there's always the unexpected consequence of you make a rule change here and then you might affect something over there. But rugby, look, like every major team sport has its challenges with participation numbers. It's not sort of rugby. You look at other sports, certainly in the in established markets, it actually growing the game in an established market, whereby some unions and federations are seeing that numbers have actually dropped off. In France, for instance, the numbers have gone up because they have, in a lot of their federal rugby, then basically the tackle height, which has now been adopted globally in the in the amateur, sort of each country can adopt it in its own way. I think that will help, and I just think that there is far more as a World Rugby organisation, we would spend a lot of time looking at player welfare. Player welfare is the number one on my agenda. Every single meeting that I go for, that's the first thing. Right? What are we doing? What are we doing about player welfare? How are we making the game safer, but still retaining the uniqueness of the game? And I think at the highest level now, we have integrated mouth guards. That you have independent doctors. You've got the HIA protocols. So I think whilst there are collisions in the game, what we try and do is with the penalising the high tackle above sort of shoulder height, the head tackle, things like that, penalising and giving probably more yellow cards, more red cards than there have been. But that is because we want to make the game as safe as we can do.
You're convinced that we're going the right way about this, Seville, aren't you? And your own career was cut short by concussion concerns. So you're confident that rugby as a sport is leading the way it should in this particular area, being a collision sport? Absolutely.
I feel that sort of I'm working in collaboration, not just isolated, by the way, with World Rugby, that we have to take all our partners with us. We have in New Zealand, they've had the Orchid study, they've had the Otago study, they've had, and I know in Queensland, for instance, they have a study themselves, and that they are extremely strong on educating sort of all the schools and things like that. And that's what, every rugby club you go to, people are aware of head knocks and concussion. Well, I played, it was a stupid badge of honour to stay on the pitch. Yeah. You didn't go off, did you?
You played a whole game and didn't remember what you did. I did that before. I played an entire match. The magic sponge,
whereby now I see games at community level, sort of third, fourth division, and as soon as a player goes down, they come off the field. And you've got to have a mandatory stand-down period for that. And I think that is so important to keep educating coaches, keep educating players that it's not brave to stay on the field, then you've got to come off the field.
So two things that occurred to me on that, Bill. One is, we put a lot on the refs right now. We place a lot of this share of the onus right now on referees. When I watched the excellent documentary Whistleblowers, I was struck by the loneliness of the top ref in a top match. Unlike many other major sports like the NFL, Super Bowl, there's a team of referees. NBA, same thing, and they coordinate, they collaborate, and they announce it. And there's almost safety in numbers. And is there a move? Should there be a move where we have more than one referee on the pitch? You already have ARs on the touchline. Should they come in and be able to do ruck, scrum, maybe some offsides? Given that marking where the ball goes out is not the be-all and end-all in rugby. There's only a couple of times that matters, 50-22 and maybe a 5 meter, but the rest of it could be helped by having more people around the tackle zone.
Well, certainly there's some countries, certainly south of the equator, who would certainly look to try and maybe to get 2 referees, and that's something that will be on the field, and that'll be something that will be discussed in 2 weeks' time. Also, I think one of the issues is that when I played, players made mistakes. And referees had the odd error. And everybody accepted it because you didn't have the endless replays and basically the game just flowed because there was no stopping it. Whereby now, quite rightly, you have to look at the player safety. So if there's a high tackle, referee will have to see it. Now it goes on report, which is, I think, takes that away from the referee making a decision when you've got the 70,000 spectators cheering the tackle, or you've got 70,000 booing it. You got to take that away. So that's now independently done in the bunker. I just think that it is a complicated game.
Isn't that
Yeah.
isn't that part of the charm though? I mean, in the 50 years that we're talking about, 74 to 24, the growth was phenomenal. Are we in danger of almost critiquing our own sport too harshly? Like it's working. People want to play it in Chile. People want to play it in Portugal.
Yeah,
Isn't
absolutely.
that part of it? Yeah.
You name it, Uruguay, Chile, with all countries, Portugal, look how well they've done. And then amazingly, Belgium beat Portugal the other day in the European game, which is not great for Portugal, but it's great for European rugby. It's great for Belgium. Look, the game is still it's a vibrant game that people want to get involved in and want to play it. And I always think that certainly is there a risk in playing rugby? Well, there's a risk if you get in your car and drive anywhere.
Yeah, true.
But is there rewards in rugby? Without a doubt, there are rewards. And I think the rewards of being part of a team, working together, a really good sort of work ethic. And also, let's remember, having a bit of fun.
Yes. There's a game to be enjoyed out there, isn't there?
Let's remember that this is a sport for enjoyment. You play because you want to enjoy yourself. Yeah, we should never lose sight of that either.
Do we do enough to make sure that the way the game is officiated and the way judiciary situations played out? Do we do enough to make sure they're in sync? And we've been talking about tackle heights and foul plays are an obvious one in that. And the very obvious example I think of in asking that question is that we start all foul play at mid-range, so it all starts at 6 weeks. But in the absolute majority of cases, Bill, we end up giving a 50% discount, and then we go a week further with the advent of tackle school. So 6 weeks becomes 2. Are we actually doing enough to change behaviours? Is that something that we need to look at?
Well, Harry's the lawyer, not me.
Bill, just make me the czar of all punishments.
I won't get involved in the judicial process. That there are thresholds that the people who sit on these boards are independent, and it is not for me to question right or wrong. I know that you get mitigated down if you go on a tackle course and things like that. Anything you can to try and educate the player to become a better tackler. But
I guess my point is, Bill, that we on one hand we're saying we need to start at 6 weeks to send a message to make sure that we are changing behaviours, but then not the very next step, but part of that process then seems to undermine that. So maybe we're not necessarily looking at the thresholds or the entry point, but maybe it's the discounts that we actually need
we're always looking at how we change the entry points.
Yeah,
they have changed significantly over the last few years. It's sort of look, if you commit some of the worst acts on a rugby field, then you ain't going to be back in 2 or 3 weeks. I'll tell you that.
No, that's true.
Quite right.
That's certainly true. Yeah.
Also, there is fewer high tackles. I mean, in empirical basis, if you watch matches from 30 years ago versus now, the players are getting it. I think to Brett's point, it's more the incoherence of it. Yeah.
It's a matter of educating players. It's a matter of educating coaches. That if you go high and a player ducks, then you risk the chance, and you don't. Yeah. You risk the chance that you're going to get sent off the field. And that ain't going to help your team or help you. You're going to be missing games going forward, which in the professional area will cost you money.
Yeah,
without a doubt. So look, tackle heights, I think, have significantly, and we're now waiting to get all the evidence back that obviously we're in the cumulative game, but I'm led to believe that there is a reduction in head injuries due to the tackle. I think the evidence,
which is really promising.
The evidence is there, and that is, why we do it. That's why we do it. We've seen it in France, we've seen it in New Zealand, we've seen it in the UK. There is significant reduction in injuries with the tackle height coming down.
Bill, one of the most charming things about rugby, I think we all feel, is the connection between the amateur club game and the highest levels, that there's more of a connection there than you would see in, say, many other collision-based sports for sure, and also team sports. I wanted to ask you about, is it Filled Rugby Union Club that you're a member of, that you started at? Is that right?
Well, the locals would call it Filed.
Filed? So if Filed, it's
interesting. Filed is an area, and in fact, the ground is half a mile from where I'm speaking from at the moment.
Oh, wow.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting when you look at trying to look forward, like we're doing. Like what's coming up? What are the next 20 years? But look backward. Filed, their first year of gate receipts was £57. And they tossed a coin to decide whether they would play football or rugby at that club. Correct. And with that £57 budget, they were able to build a stand. It's interesting now we have money flowing through the English Premiership like crazy, and
still there.
Clubs are going broke. I mean, what is the way for us to go forward? Should we look backward and see, was there a different way to do this? Where you have local, powerful rugby grassroots thriving without dumping trucks of money on it?
I think, look, has the game of rugby changed from being men only Saturday afternoon sport? Yes. And administrators should accept that there will still be lots of players who want to play. So now you've got to have, quite right, so you've got to have women's sections and in your mini juniors, girls, boys. I know my grandson, my granddaughter, they play for the File Club, one in the under-8s, the other in the under-7s, I think it is. And Annie's the only girl in a boys, not a boys team, it's open to anybody. She's the only girl in the team. And she's the best tackler. So you look at it and think, well, as administrators, what can we do? And certainly try and generate funds that you improve facilities. Because if you improve facilities, let's say the File Rugby Club, then kids, when they come down, they have decent pitches, they've got decent changing rooms. They're going to be, and the biggest point is invest in coaching.
Yes.
You have to invest as a rugby club and union federation, invest in coaching, because good coaches produce good players, and they make the game exciting, they make it accessible, and they make it fun. If you have poor coaches, poor administration, you have poor rugby clubs, and that's why they're in decline.
Yeah.
So there's no point.
That's a great
point. Rugby clubs always pointing the finger at the union or the federation. A lot of it is up to you. And really, what they should go back to when they had the toss of the coin at the Ansell Institute just down the road here in 1919, whether they're going to play football or rugby. That those guys were very much part of the community. And to be fair, the File Rugby Club now is a real focus in the community.
What sort of footballer would you have been, Seville, if the coin went the other way?
I still enjoy watching football. I'm a very enthusiastic Blackburn Rovers supporter.
Oh, right.
You've never heard of Blackburn Rovers?
No, we definitely have.
We are one of the few teams that actually have won the Premiership.
I was going to say you were the first team to win the Premiership, weren't you?
Yeah, we're having a bit of a tough time at the moment. We're in the Championship, not doing too well.
We've had a great conversation here, Seville, and I think I know the answer to this. Hearing what you just said about your grandkids playing, are you excited about the future for the game and where it is heading as a game for all?
Look, there are massive opportunities for the game of rugby. We are looking at a growth plan to go into the USA, up Canada, and if you think of how many fantastic athletes there are in Africa that we should access to try and take the game, and it will only come with good organisation, good coaching, and getting teams fixtures. Now that might sound a stupid thing to say, but it doesn't matter if you're a club or a country. What you actually need are fixtures. Because if you don't have fixtures, then basically you have nothing to, or nobody
Play
to test
for.
themselves against.
Mm.
And also really excited about the women's game. Women's game is the fastest part of our sport. You know, if you look at I went to watch the Six Nations game between England and France, over 50,000 people in Twickenham. The World Cup final, New Zealand against England, over 40,000 people.
Yeah, Eden Park, yeah.
Got the World Cup here, 25. Opening game at the Stadium of Light, I think, at Sunderland, hoping for over 50,000 people. There is huge interest and huge growth in the women's. And also, let's not ignore the sevens. Got the Olympics coming up this year.
Yes.
in Paris. I was in Perth 2 weeks ago to watch that leg of it. There are some unbelievable athletes who really excel at that form of the sport. Argentina were unbelievable, and Ireland's women were amazing. How they beat the Australians.
Yeah. It wasn't a great leg from an Australian point of view, Bill, but you're right. It was fantastic to see Ireland and Argentina having success like that.
On public, Perth are fantastic.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I tell you what, it's a great city and so enthusiastic and good people there.
Yeah, great. So, Bill, we must thank you enormously for your time and for agreeing to be our first guest. We've had a great conversation. Harry never did tell me how hard he had to work to convince you to come on, but we're incredibly grateful that you've given us some time for our first episode.
He persuaded me because he was at law school. Is that right, Harry? With one of my colleagues, Bob Latham, who is on the World Rugby Exec Committee, and he's also been
Bob
on
last year. Yes.
If it's good enough for Bob, it's good enough for me.
Well, I threw in a packet of wine gums as well. That was the kick.
All right, excellent.
Good on you, Bill. It's been fantastic to speak to you. Thanks so much for your time.
And good luck. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Righto.
Thanks,
really
Bill.
Good. This is the 8-9 Combo Rugby Podcast. Great to be with you still. I'm Brett McKay. This is Harry Jones. And, mate, Sir Bill Beaumont. What a way to start a new podcast. That was fantastic. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, good chatting to Bill. I thought he was open. It's interesting that he's back at Lancashire on that Fylde Peninsula, kind of doing the things that got him to fall in love with rugby in the first place.
Yeah.
And if there was one critique I'd make of world rugby, is it doesn't really humanize some of these figures enough and remind us that it all comes back to that. You fall in love with the odd shaped ball and you're running around smashing guys and it's legal. And then, how do we keep ourselves safer? How do we grow it? These are all the questions that keep him up at night, I suppose. Although, to be fair, I felt like he was remarkably at peace with it all and doesn't necessarily sit around racking his brain. I think he's generally a rugby optimist.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It's a really good way of putting it. And he's so right about, like, sevens is huge. The women's game is huge. His point about the growth of the women's game was spot on there towards the end of it. So fantastic to speak to him and very grateful that he was able to give us half an hour or so for our first episode. Mate, one little change that we are going to make to the format in 2024 is to sort of dedicate 10 minutes or so, plus or minus every week, to the various competitions around the world and touch on the major talking points as we go through them. And there's no doubt at the moment that the biggest rugby ticket on the face of the earth is the Six Nations at the moment. We saw the second round played on the weekend. Scotland suffered heartbreak at Murrayfield in the aforementioned held up no try. England, I won't say they returned to form, but they did enough to beat Wales, who were a lot better than they were the week before against France. And Ireland just rolled on, didn't they, against Italy, who were actually pretty good, I thought, against England the first week. So it really looks like it's not just it's not just Ireland's tournament to lose from here, but it's who's going to stop them winning a Grand Slam again?
I mean, so it has to be England now. Once Marseille went the way it did, which, basically, let's be honest, the French look fat. They literally are just overweight. The Scots are a wee bit mad. They just have a knack of finding a way to do something that hurts themselves. Wales is like Rian Lowe said, it's 1,000 ants crawling on your arse. So, and Wales is just trying to do a rebuilding year, and they have full permission, right? They can get one win and they're fine. So there's not really a lot of pressure. Once the French folded, it's all on England, and England can spoil Irish hopes. Is it the most likely? No, but it happens at Twickenham. England is playing a style that would be the style like Dave Rennie did and the Box did, where you can keep Ireland under 20, which is the key. If you want to go toe-to-toe with them, no, England's not going to do that. So at this stage of development, England has shown that they could make perhaps blitz enough, get in the head of Jack Crowley, a young fly-off. That's the only hope. But I would say this, by England winning, it kept the tournament alive, because had England lost, I think it would have been over. I think
it would have been a cakewalk. Yes, true.
Snorefest. Yeah. So I do think the old great tournament, which is wonderful, the best annual tournament, it's still alive, but now we all have to be kind of secretly, grudgingly supporting England.
Yeah, and that was an interesting. So that was the game I watched the most of over the weekend, England-Wales, and I still came away from that thinking, I don't know the best team won on the day. It seemed to me that the team making the line breaks and the team looking most likely was not the team in white.
Tommy turnover. Look, it's Ireland's tournament, and I want to say something clear here. I just want Ireland to be pushed to the hilt and have an actual meaningful match against England, but I still will always back Ireland over England. And Ireland's playing beautiful rugby. A little bit flattered by the Italians, who, really. Let's stop saying Italy's in a tournament because it helps everyone score tries. So that's the truth. There are other teams,
but England,
if there was relegation promotion, there might be other teams that would fit in there better and give people a harder time. But
they were really good against England in the first week, though.
That's true, but they kind of seem to run out of petrol in the second or third round. So that I don't know. I just don't see anyone stopping a repeat slam, and we got to then come up with a really cool name for a repeat Grand Slam, Slam Bam. The Grand Slam. I don't know. But the Irish will probably have something.
Slam Bam. Thank you.
Right. So we'll see. I just think that Ireland looks like supremely confident right now.
They do. Yeah. Jack Crowley looks. It's interesting that in the middle of that Ireland team that is, built around the strength of Leinster, like genuine world beaters on the professional stage, that it's a couple of guys from Munster. Organising the team at 9 and 10. That's an interesting dynamic, isn't it?
And they've got depth. Steve McCloskey is playing really well. You got Henshaw pushing. So you've got Ringrose, Henshaw, McCloskey.
Henshaw was good.
Double barrel midfield, and also the young gun Joe McCarthy. Comes in and just shakes up the whole lock crew. They just look really good. I cannot wait to see them go to South Africa and try to win a series there.
Yeah, no, that'll be something. Absolutely. Super Rugby Pacific Trials, the last weekend of those were played over the weekend. The Blues and Chiefs have been in Japan for 2 weeks. The Blues had a big win over the Yokohama Cannon Eagles. It was 57-22 in Yokohama. The Chiefs just got away beating the Kubota Spears Funabashi Tokyo Bay. 35-30 at the Prince Chichibu Stadium, the home of the Sunwolves. So
Chichibu.
So that was the Blues had a rough time of it the week before, from memory. So they bounced back. In Australia, the ACT Brumbies beat the Western Force over in Perth 22-20. The Force had a conversion after the siren to level it and just pushed it wide. So that was a near thing. Queensland gave New South Wales a good old-fashioned touch-up, though, 32-7, and the 7 was a penalty try. So there was a few questions being asked of the perennial February champions in Super Rugby. Never mind that. Super Rugby Pacific begins next weekend, the weekend of the 23rd, 24th of Feb. The Super Round in Melbourne is in round 2. That's the first weekend of March. The URC, the United Rugby Championship, the ERC, the top 14, League One in Japan, they all resume this weekend coming. The Premiership is back that same weekend, the 23rd to the 25th of February, and we will keep talking about it every week right here on the 8-9 Combo. Insert ad markers here. Ba-dum. Harry, some news of the last 7 days or so. From an Australian point of view, the Wallabies and Wallaroos home schedule of matches was confirmed on Friday last week. The Wallabies will play Wales in Sydney and Melbourne in July, and then Georgia back in Sydney on July 20. It'll be the first time they've been sighted on Australian shores in a long time, if not probably ever. They play 2 rugby championship games against South Africa in August in Brisbane and Perth. First Bledisloe game, and it'll be a rugby championship match as well against New Zealand in Sydney in September 21. They'll then go to Wellington and play second Bledisloe test. The rugby championship games against Argentina will be in South America, and spring tour fixtures are still to be confirmed. The Wallaroos play Canada in Sydney in May, the USA in Melbourne in May, Fiji in July. That's a double header with the Wales game in Sydney, and then New Zealand at Ballymore in July as well. So that'll be really good to see all that play out.
I'm going to come see you for the Bledisloes. I'm going to come for the day game. So I'll be up there.
Okay.
And then
we'll tee that up.
Over to the Cape Town, Wellington, and watch the other Bled.
Right.
No, very excited. So the travel budget of 8-9 is obviously greatly expanded. So I'm excited about that too. Yeah,
I will believe that when I am with you.
I'll show it to you when I come there. I'll bring out. It's in my wallet.
New Zealand rugby confirmed about a week ago that the All Blacks will play 14 tests in 9 countries in 2024, including 5 home matches in Dunedin, Auckland, and Wellington. But they'll also play Fiji at the Snapdragon Stadium in San Diego in July. Nice. Plus back-to-back tests in South Africa as part of the Rugby Championship. Rob Valentini took out his first John Eales medal last week after being runner-up in 2022. Eva Karpani was named the Wallaroos Player of the Year, so congratulations to them. South Africa will host back-to-back World Rugby Under-20s Championships. World Rugby confirmed that late last week. The Under-20s Championship be played over 5 match days in the Western Cape regions. Your neck of the woods, Stellenbosch.
It's going to be so muddy. I'm going to tell you right now.
That's been the criticism already. Yes. And that was like a lesson that wasn't learned from last year. Speaking of your stomping grounds, South African Rugby Union is supposedly on the verge of completing a multi-million-dollar investment with American sports company Ackley Sports Group. The company confirmed Thursday last week they're negotiating a partnership agreement which will invest in the game at all levels in the Republic, which is obviously
actually a really big deal, guys.
I can imagine.
Seattle group that knows what they're doing. It's not these, the bad guy in the pantomime villains of capital venture capitalists. This is the good group.
Yeah.
The valuation is interesting of basically the Bach brand at $375 million US. That is actually higher than people believed, and it puts them a little bit above the All Blacks. So it could be good news though for a place like Australia to actually get their mind around that it's not about the old ways of investing. There's actually groups out there that are not in the familiar parts of the world that you could actually intrigue, because the Wallabies still have a grand brand.
Yeah, no, they do. They definitely do. Springboks legend Victor Matfield has confirmed over the weekend that he will work with Eddie Jones as part of the Japanese setup as a consultant line-out coach, which is interesting. And Barry John, the Welsh great fly half, played 25 games for Wales, inspired the British and Irish Lions in that famous series victory over New Zealand in 1971. Retired at the age of 27. Died peacefully in hospital in Wales last week. He was 79.
What a legend! What a legend! Yeah. The kind of guy running around the pitch where you always thought he's in certain doom. It's about he's about to get smashed. He could kick 17 different ways. Love the guy.
That is all history well before my time, but I certainly know about the legend of Barry John in Welsh rugby. A little bit of news on the personal front, mate. I can confirm, that's not the word. I can announce that I have finished up with the Raw, Australia's sporting opinion site, of which we potted for a couple of years and which I wrote for 15 years. I decided with us moving the pod on that it was time for me to explore some greener pastures as well. And I'll have a little bit of news on that front in the next week or so, where I start there in the week leading into Super Rugby. But that'll be a bit of a change for me. I will miss the audience at the Raw, and I'll be forever grateful for the Raw starting me in this game. So again, my thanks to Tony Harper, the current editor, and all his predecessors who gave me a crack from way back when. But you're going to keep going.
Yeah. You're an honest writer, and I think what always endeared you to the crowd at the Roar, which is very vibrant, and we'll get into you, is that you straight up always solid with your sourcing and always stayed true to journalistic principles. Yes, I will still write my mad essays there from time to time, regularly. So I'm very busy in lots of other projects as well, including hopefully the first really good rugby movie and a graphic novel. But I'm sure you'll be missed, and I really think it was a fantastic innings, mate.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. But what have you got against the Invictus? No, you don't have to answer that. Because that wraps up the very first episode for us under the 8-9 combo banner. How have we done? I reckon I'm giving us a tick here.
Big cheer. Also, I want to reach out to a guy in the Sydney area named Matt. Someone gave me a tip of this guy, Matt, who's having a little bit of a struggle. Listen, Matt, to you, rugby is the salvation. Stick in there. Think calm, strong thoughts. Fasten yourself to something really strong and good. Be vivid and be bold, and hang in there. I do think it's interesting how many people from our audience have reached out, and I think it's important that we keep that connection.
Exciting.
We're never going to be self-important. That's not our style. But we do value you, and we are very happy that you're coming with us and listening to us. So please hang with us as well.
Not until the money starts flowing in, anyway. No, thanks to all of you out there in Rugby Pod World who have found us. If you are new to our work, then welcome. If you know us from the last few years, then thank you so much for following us. And speaking of following the pod, he's on the socials at 89combo on Twitter, on Insta, and also on YouTube, where you can find video versions of the podcast every week if you would prefer to watch. So wherever you find us, give us a follow, a like, a subscribe, and interact with the pod directly. Harry and I are on the socials in our usual places at Harry Baldy Jones and at BMC Sport. On the ratings and the review front, we are absolutely starting from scratch. So if your pod platform allows it, please do leave us a rating and or a review. YouTube definitely does, and it all helps. And on the chart front, it was really heartening last week to see us straight back into the Australian and South African top 10. We debuted at 15 in Ireland. We're in the top 20 in the US, top 30 in the UK, and that is just we're blown away by that after a couple of teaser episodes. So do like, follow, subscribe on your pod platform of choice and on YouTube as well, and just make sure you get every new episode as soon as it drops. This is the 8-9 combo, the short side set piece combination you didn't realize you needed, coming from the podcast combination you already had. I'm Brett McKay. He's Harry Jones, and we'll be back in your ears next week.
Be like Bill Beaumont. Come play with us.
Nice. Very good.